Yeah, did you see Ladbrokes have suspended betting on whether Boris Johnson will be replaced as Prime Minister?
No, of course
Yep,
they have. That's great.
yeah. And two more parliamentary aides have quit, although I've heard of neither of them. But it's still not good news for him, I suppose.
A trade
Oh yeah,
envoy to Morocco.
yeah. By the way, Navarra Media are doing quite a good Twitter space thing. If you wanted to listen to that,
Oh, definitely can do. If Ash just tweeted about it, well, I'm probably Aaron more likely. The question is
yeah.
like, who if he does go, who becomes
Mm,
leader? Like, there's just fucking nobody. Just like there's a huge amount of the cabinet that's just entirely tied to Boris Johnson as a political
mm,
force and as a character.
yeah.
But they're basically they're spoiled now. They're too top. They've been toxicified by their close relationship with Boris Johnson. People like
Mm.
Patel, like Doris, like Raab, like
I don't know.
Zawahi, like Rees-Mogg.
Nadine Dorries is racist enough that she might be able to win a Tory party leadership election, even as a brown person, which
I
is
mean,
ironic in some respects. But yeah,
I mean,
I genuinely think
definitely.
she might be able to. But I mean, either way, like I still think he'll call a general election because it's the most
Oh yeah,
irresponsible thing he could do, which means
yeah,
it's probably the thing he will do. Yeah,
yeah. 100%. I absolutely agree. It's the only like the 1922 committee is convening next week. He'll just call an
yeah.
election before then. Before they can change the rules to remove him as leader, he'll just call a general election. And then what they're going to do? Have a leadership election in the middle of a general election campaign period? Of course they fucking can't. Like what they're going
Well,
to do?
but Labour might have to do that. Because if he gets a fine and has to
Oh my
step down,
god.
look, it would that I suppose his excuse would be I can't resign. He's just called a general election. But then does he fight a general election, win, become prime minister, and then have to resign? Like
But
what the fuck happens? What it's a cavalcade of madness.
this
None of it makes sense.
I was just saying that the best, like the peak meme value that we could get is um if the fine gets issued between now and next week, and then we have like the possibility of leadership elections happening for both parties, or a general election happening where there's a leadership election for Labour, like both parties in complete meltdown. It would unironically be the
Yeah,
funniest possible thing.
it would be absolute banter. Yeah. But the thing is, like, uh, usually you'd say like, oh, well, look, you wouldn't want the country to be completely rudderless with absolutely no leadership. But you think to yourself, would that actually be any different than the way it's been for the last fucking 2 years
Yeah,
anyway?
I literally would say completely identical to what we have right now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like literally, if the government didn't exist, I don't think the situation would be much different.
no,
That's how,
you're absolutely right. We're just basically running on fumes in the civil service.
yeah, 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 absolutely. And not just that, but we're all still pretending that COVID isn't happening. Like that's just a thing that people are pretending isn't a thing, even though the numbers are going through the roof again.
Yeah, very, very true. But like, it's just been so much of the government's like the only way they've been able to try and launder Boris Johnson's reputation is through the lens of he got the calls right on COVID, and we're now out of COVID, and that's the success of the Johnson administration.
But he
So
didn't.
the government, yeah, of course, but that's their
Yeah,
line. That's their
yeah.
go to. That's their
Well, his
that's
whole
what they're
thing was
saying.
he got all the during the vote of no confidence. He got all of the big calls right. What the fuck are they taught? What fantasy world are you living in?
Yeah,
What calls did he get right?
yeah. Fucking what was it? What was the thing that at the start of the pandemic? Herd immunity. Any remember that? Any remember herd
Yeah,
immunity? Like whilst like the army was being called in Lombardy to like ship dead corpses out of people's houses because mortuaries couldn't deal with the demand because of how many people had died in Italy. At that time, and I was watching the news going, no one's taking any of this fucking seriously. And at that time, Boris Johnson was going, "Yeah, it's fine, just herd immunity." I'm like, "No, this is fucking serious, mate." And you'll never bet which party leader was saying that they should have been doing more at that time. You'll never guess which party leader was saying that the government wasn't doing enough to curb infections.
the anti-Semite.
Yeah, yeah, the terrorist sympathizer with the 10-degree bow.
Exactly, exactly. But, oh my god, Bima Falabi, vice chairman of the party, resigned live on TV.
Talk TV. Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%.
Fuck me, that is
Absolute carnage.
fucking wild. Like, didn't even. Well, maybe he did send a letter as well, but he announced it on fucking live TV. This is a game show situation. This is nonsense.
It is, yeah, you're 100% correct. It's just it, but that's why I'm thinking. That's why I want the fine to get issued. If we're gonna basically live in like the meme politics era, where it's all just a pantomime, as one of my chatters was saying, it's become pantomime politics. If that's the case, then why not just go full hog, right? Why not get the biggest amount of meme value that we can out of this ridiculous situation?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Boris Johnson is nothing but meme. That's all he is.
True.
So yeah, go with it. Fuck it. The British public seem to want it. Yeah, here he is. Bim Afolabi has just resigned his position live on TV.
Should we
Fucking
socially
hell.
go? Well, I can tell you that earlier on today, I went to the funeral of a very long-standing councillor in my constituency. Much loved, not just because of his work as a councillor and as a mayor, but also because of what he did in the community more broadly, in family and friends. And a lot of the talk was about his deep integrity and what that means to people in this country, not just in my constituency, but across the country. And I think that what's been very sad over the recent allegations about the former Deputy Chief Whip and other things that have happened over recent weeks, that I just don't think the Prime Minister any longer has not just my support, but he doesn't have, I don't think, the support of the party or indeed the country anymore. And I think for that reason...
It's always that way round, isn't it? Always note the way they say it. It's always party first, then maybe government, and the country comes somewhere down the list.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
He should step down.
You're vice chairman of the Conservative
Well,
Party.
probably not after having said that, but yes.
All right. Well, let's see if you retain your position. You're not resigning as vice chair of the
Well, no,
Conservative
look,
Party.
I think you have to resign. Right? You have to resign because I can't serve
Right.
under the Prime Minister. But I say that with regret because I think this government's done some great things. I think the Prime Minister's got a very strong legacy in a huge range of areas. But I just think that when you've lost trust of people,
and it's so obvious
and the
just
Prime
from
Minister
law
asked
the
at the
party
confidence vote to be...
But why? You've just said he's a pile of shit, he should go. Why are you then sucking his dick after that? Like, what's the purpose of that? Like,
Well, I think he's trying to talk. He's trying to talk about talking about like the Conservative policy platform. He's trying to distance the cult of personality of Boris Johnson away from the policy platform that they've kind of governed with over the past 3 years or so. Because if people lose faith in conservatism because of Boris Johnson, that's really bad for the whole party. Whereas if they lose faith in just Boris Johnson and he goes, and they go back to conservatism without having to worry about Boris Johnson as a political figure, then they can go ahead and rebrand for the next election.
True, and this is the thing. It seems like such an odd thing for the camel, the straw to break the camel's back, so to speak. Because he's done this. Wouldn't even crack the top 5, maybe not even the top 10 scandals of his prime ministership.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's telling that this comes after the really embarrassing by-election loss in wherever the fuck it was in the southwest of the country, where they lost 25,000 majority, which is just ridiculous. You should never lose that.
It's the biggest by-election swing in history.
Yeah, that's why this is happening. They were waiting for the next scandal so they could all jump ship. That's why this is a thing, because this isn't, by comparison to some of the things he's said and done over the course of this time, this is not really that big a deal.
I think it's higher than a bunch of stuff. Like, in my opinion, it ranks like worse than Partygate, worse than like some of the crony contract stuff, because this was literally him appointing someone to a high position, knowing that this person was like a potential sex criminal.
Yeah. This is the thing. I think actually, Mr. Peter Bone, idiot though he is, I think was correct in one aspect in his fucking genuinely offensive thing he said in Parliament today about do people care about an MP they've never heard of or tax cuts. Now, that they shouldn't care about that. That's obviously a disgusting thing to say, but he's kind of correct. The British, I think certainly the Tory voter, doesn't really care so much about an MP they've never heard of. And I think, again, morally it's definitely worse than Partygate. But in terms of electoral damage, this could have been easily swept under the rug. They could have just ignored this, really. If they really wanted to, considering the shit they have defended over the course of the last 2 years, this, again, I don't think cracks even the top 10 in terms of electoral damage. Morally, it's reprehensible beyond belief. This guy was a serial sexual abuser, absolute piece of shit, should never have been appointed, and of course he lied yet again, saying, I didn't know about these allegations, and has had to come out and say, no, actually I did know about these allegations, I just lied to you all yet again.
And knew about it whilst he was appointing him to a reasonably high-ranking
Yeah.
position as well.
Yeah, not just that, a position of authority where you can coerce members of parliament. You gave that power to a sexual abuser.
Yeah, 100%. I think the reason why it's coming to the fore just now is that I think they were trying to find something suitably egregious specifically to link to the press so they could get rid of him, because obviously the writing's been
Yeah.
on the wall for ages. So they're saying, well, let's find something that is literally indefensible in every possible circumstance. Like if there was if he didn't know about Pincher at the time, there would be like a modicum of defense. But the fact that he knew and did it anyway, curtains as far as they're concerned. Obviously, you'll call the
Well,
election now, but like,
yeah, well, exactly, yeah. But I think with the Pincher thing, the thing that sums up so perfectly the Boris Johnson style of governance, he, A, he knew about it and lied. B, he knew about lying about it and lied. But the initial when the story broke end of last week, it took him 24 hours to even suspend him. Like he had the whip removed from him or whatever, but to suspend him as a member of the Conservative Party.
yeah.
And that was because of 24 hours of relentless media pressure. Like he was happy to allow the guy who was a sexual abuser, pretty obviously so. Like he hasn't technically been convicted of anything, but there's no one like doubting that story that that's what he is. To the point where journalists are openly saying it on TV because they know they can't get sued for it because it's true, right?
Mm.
So he's a serial sexual abuser. He was happy for him to just remain in the party. That was fine. It was only until he was forced to do anything about it, which just shows you the complete lack of respect he has for anyone else. It's just what's politically convenient or inconvenient for him.
But it shows that fucking absolute wrath at the heart of the Tory party. Regardless, they let this guy get into a position. They let Boris Johnson become prime minister and be the leader of the party, despite all the backstabbing he's done. Despite the fact that he's still not really properly faced the fact that this was the guy who conspired to have a journalist beaten up in the early 2000s, right? Like Boris Johnson's he's a reprehensible human being. It always has been. They let him be the leader of the party. They let him destroy the country. They let him completely mismanage the pandemic. They all fucking enabled all this shit right up until now. And the Tories, they all knew, even all the rest of the Tories all knew that Pincher was a serial sexual abuser, or that he was dodgy at the very least, right? And they just swept under the rug until it was politically convenient for them to leak it, to try and get rid of Boris Johnson because it was politically inconvenient to have him as leader of the party for their own future career prospects. These people are scum. These people are absolute scum.
They are, and this. I mean, I did a joke on my show on Saturday that this week wasn't so bad for the Tory government because there was only 2 sexual scandals this week, and that's actually kind of true. In a normal week, 2 isn't that bad for the Tories, actually. You had, obviously, Boris Johnson and Blowjo Carrygate thing, right, which is a thing. Just weird. And then, although technically consensual, so I suppose on that basis, it's actually an improvement for him and for the Tories in general. And you had, obviously, Pincher. But that comes on the back of last week they lost 2 by-elections because of 2 other sex scandals. One was the guy fucking sexually abusing 15-year-olds, and the other one was the guy watching fucking porn in Parliament. Like, what? They're just a den of the sexual fucking degeneracy, to use the right-wing phrase, you know?
It makes that Keith Vaz scandal look completely fucking pedestrian in comparison. Like, it is completely legal for Keith Vaz to have sex with male sex workers. That is a legal thing that he can do. Obviously, it's scandalous regardless, but it's at least illegal, unlike literal sexual assault of teenage boys like Imran Ahmad Khan or whatever it was. I think that was his name. And then, and to be fair, like Pincher hasn't even resigned yet.
No.
Fucking Tiverton and Honiton MP, whatever it was. Neil Parish was the name of the guy?
Neil Parish, tractor, was it Corn Hub? Yeah.
Yeah, Corn Hub. Like, I wouldn't have resigned for watching porn in the House of Commons. Obviously, I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have watched in the first place. But that's something that you can just make an apology and forget about. Being a serial sexual abuser, that is not something that people can forget. And it's obviously materially, like, in a different fucking stratosphere than just watching porn in Parliament, which is, it's not good form, and it is, I'm assuming most men his age don't really watch the most feminist porn. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was almost certainly something that was.
No, he was watching sissy porn. Yeah.
Oh, was he? Okay,
He
well, it's
was.
all right then.
He was.
It's all right then. In which case, I'll watch Chad. But like, it's there's clearly it shows contempt for the women in your presence, right? When we all know what porn is like
Yeah.
nowadays. So but that's still something that, in my mind, is something you can just apologize and forget about. It's not
Yeah.
it's nowhere close to anything else from Pincher or Khan or the guy who's the MP who resigned over the breaking the ministerial code for lobbying. What the fuck is his
Oh
name?
God. This is the thing with the Tories. There are so many scandals. The names just go. It's difficult to keep up with. I've forgotten his fucking name. I know
Yeah.
you're talking about it, but I can't remember his name now.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, and it just shows again that it's absolute. These people are vermin. Like, why
Yeah.
do these people get
Well,
elected into position of power?
Well, the fucking media are so complacent and compliant with this nonsense. They're now saying, "Oh, they're resigning. They're showing a great deal of backbone. It's a great deal of respect they should be earning from this and blah blah." No, they've all been at the trough. They all knew
Yeah.
what Boris Johnson was and what he's been for the last, well, his entire adulthood, frankly, and indeed his younger life as well. So, and they were fine with that. They were absolutely fine with all of the scandal, all of the hideousness. You had fucking all manner of financial shenanigans with Rishi Sunak and his wife as well. I mean, just stealing millions from the British Exchequer, frankly. And we're supposed to be like, well, actually, at the 11th hour, literally right as the ship was about to sink, they jumped off. Oh, well done, guys! Yeah, fantastic.
Why was the Green Cell Capital scandal not like massive? No, I mentioned this. People like, what's the Green Cell scandal? I'm like, literally, we have an ex-prime minister WhatsApping the chancellor asking to bail out his failing lobbying bit, the failing business that he lobbies for with public money. What the fuck?
Yeah.
How is this not like national, like bring down the government level scandal? It's just it's absolutely unreal to me that literally any member of the Conservative Party feels fit to launder their political reputation,
Yeah.
considering what they've staked their mask to over the past 3 years. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I was talking about this on stream earlier. Like, remember when there was the whole thing in the run up to the 2019 election about the tank top bum boys coming and the letterboxes coming, right?
Yeah.
And like, this to me is like the Trump mocking disabled reporter moment. It was like, if this doesn't bring him down, then like we've lost. Like, how does democracy function? Why was this not the end point?
Yeah. I'm just showing on screen for my people there. Actually, no, I'm sharing screen with you, aren't I? That's the thing that was put around. That was Theresa May, who people are going to be girl bossing about, by the way. Oh, she's gonna be enjoying that. She's also fucking trash. She did the hostile environment and all that shit. She can fuck off. This is a
Failed in
list of
Grenfell.
4. Indeed, yes. 40 MPs who were essentially little more than blackmailed with their sexual scandals by Theresa May at the time. All of whom engaged in inappropriate behaviour, shall we say? Although at least some of them...
Yeah, trying to whip them to vote for the Brexit deal by threatening
Indeed.
to leak it to the press.
And
also,
most of them didn't.
wasn't Theresa May the one who
Also that-
reinstated Charlie Elphick as well?
Yeah, so that he could vote for her in her vote of no confidence. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I think she had, was it 2 people who had the whip removed from them because of sexual impropriety, who, again, she reinstated so that they could vote for her. But also on this list of sexual inappropriate behaviour, blah, 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 is the current, although probably not for much longer, Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. There.
I love that Stephen Crabb is on there. Wasn't Stephen Crabb like the big religious one who he thought was going to try and stop abortion when he got into Parliament, when he got into a ministerial position?
Yeah, and then didn't.
Brilliant.
No.
It's always a fucking Christ days, isn't it?
Also, Dan Poulter there, impregnated former researcher and made her have an abortion.
Brilliant. Love
Just
it.
Lovely.
God,
Also,
Shaps.
look, I'm just going to say, it's good to see some female representation here. Liz Truss. Always good. Fornicated, Jesus. With male researchers whilst backbench MP. Sexual relationship with redacted. Wonder who that was. Anyway, so that's good.
Surprised.
And Nicholas Soames, of course, just famously is the great-grandson of Winston Churchill.
Wasn't he one of the ones who got the whip removed, who got exiled from the party in the wake of the Brexit votes?
Yes, he was. And I don't think he's a member of Parliament anymore. But famously, one of his ex-lovers described having sex with him as having what was it? Having a wardrobe with the key sticking out of it repeatedly fall on top of you.
I heard someone describe Boris Johnson being described as like having sex with a bag of custard, like with a bin bag full of custard.
Oh,
Jennifer R. Curie might have described it that way?
I'm not sure, but that sounds about right. He's got the right hair for it as well. I know. Did we want to watch the rest of this nonsense? Whatever it was, 20 seconds.
Yeah, very fair. I've shown it to my guys on stream. So
Given time to restore that trust, and I took that, as many others did in the party, but I think it's become clear, particularly after losing the support of two of his sort of closest cabinet colleagues, that I think the time has come for him to stand down.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that that's the case. Oh God, what's this fucking wet soggy biscuit up to? Do you want to hear from Sir Keith?
let's listen to Keith. Let's go.
Yeah, the government is now collapsing. We need a fresh start for Britain.
I mean, he's not wrong.
After all the sleaze.
Well, he's not wrong, but you know this is going to be some fucking like low energy bullshit.
Yeah, I was covering earlier
Failure,
today.
it's
I was
clear.
covering I was covering him talking about his vision for Brexit, which is literally identical to what the Tories were saying, i.e., with literally zero amounts of actual substantive policy proposals. Because he know that if he makes a policy proposal and then he has to go back on it, then he looks like he's broken a pledge. Whereas if he makes no commitments to anything, he can chop and change whatever he wants because he's a fucking.
Please tell me he called for a red, white, and blue Brexit, because honestly, that will be my Joker moment. I swear to God.
That's what I tweeted out immediately, but it was just like Peston trying to hold him to a position, and he just literally couldn't do it. He couldn't hold a position. It was all just fucking politician speak. He's literally like the carbon copy of every single like career politician you've ever seen in Parliament over the past fucking 30 years or so. Like how anyone could vote for him, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
After all the sleaze and all the failure, it's clear that this Tory government is now collapsing. And Tory cabinet ministers have been cheerleaders for Johnson throughout this sorry saga. They backed him when he broke the law. They backed him when he lied. They backed him when he mocked the sacrifices of the British people.
Also, look, they backed him when he broke the law. I bet his arsehole is twitching over this fine thing because he made that pledge thinking there's no way. Like someone behind the scenes gave him the nod. They're not going to do anything to you.
I mean,
that's the only reason.
Like the police surely have been scared into not doing so because he's been so public and what the ramifications of the fine would be. The police would be. It then turns into something, and it turns into a political move by the police, and they want to be able to be seen as being non-partisan. So,
well, and they really ought to, because this is the same fucking police force that let Dominic Cummings off with Barnard Castle and going for a drive to check his eyes worked.
Yeah, they don't do retroactive fines, right?
No.
So they have been complicit as he has disgraced his office and let down his country. And frankly, if they had a shred of integrity, they would have gone months ago. The Tory party is corrupted, and changing one man at the top won't fix it. We need a real change of government and a fresh start for Britain.
Just on that, though, there are many people who are concerned about big issues, the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine. Many people say this is
well done, BBC, on this amazing audio, by the way, you pricks.
For political stability.
Well, there's anything but political
stability.
There's
the guy asking the question in the next fucking room whispering.
And the Tory cabinet members have been backing Boris Johnson through this. The Tory party is corrupted, and we need not just a change at the top of the Tory party, we need a change of government and a fresh start for our country so we can actually address...
That's literally the same three sentences you just said.
It's repeating. It's so fucking obvious and so performative that like, both parties, they just have these spin doctors who just give them these carbon copy phrases to just repeat over and over and over again. Build back better. We've got the
leveling up.
We've got the change. We need change of government, a change of direction. We need 14 new hospitals. We need to get Britain moving. Security, prosperity, respect.
Strong and stable.
Strong and stable. Like literally over and over again. I'm not surprised that people are just completely fucking disabused with the entire political system and that trust in politicians is an all-time low because they're all fucking slimy. They're all careerists. None of them are in any way sincere in anything they go about, and they all seem like fucking robots.
Yeah, absolutely.
is to call a general election. He wanted to go to the public. You would support that?
Well, look, he's not fit to be Prime Minister. He's not fit to govern the country. That is dawning on many people across the Conservative Party, but they have to reflect on the fact that they have backed him for months and months and months. And resigning today, it means nothing against their complicity for all those months when they should have seen him for what he was. They knew who he was. We need a change of government.
He's not wrong. It's just I genuinely feel depressed now. I was quite happy before listening to him, and now I'm just depressed. He has depressed me.
he's,
He's the
he's,
he's the anti-serotonin.
he's a charisma vacuum, isn't he?
He is. God Almighty.
Someone's just
Could
and
put
someone's
anyone
just-
to sleep.
Someone else just resigned, by the way. Nicola Richards, PPS to Department for Transport, also now resigned.
Who cares?
Another
I'd
nobody.
never heard of that person. But yeah,
No, me neither.
well done. Well done to that person for resigning from a position I didn't know they held because I didn't know they existed.
Well, this is kind of people who are quitting positions that are in no way to do with Boris Johnson. He's just performatively doing so to try and get him to move. Like, you could change if Boris Johnson resigned and that person stayed in the PPS position. Literally,
Yeah.
no one would care. They're just trying to
No.
performatively look like they're against the prime minister when the leadership kind of spill happens eventually, right? It's just them staking themselves to the anti-Boris Johnson mask because again, it's just politically expedient and career expedient for them to do so.
Indeed. I'm stroking my cat.
Oh, okay.
No. Anyway, yeah. So, I mean, do we think he's going to call a general election then, or?
I think it's someone just tweeted out that Keir Starmer clip with just the still of Leonard Nimoy being like, "You two didn't do anything, didn't I?" And then just fades into nothingness.
Yeah. My work here is done.
My work
Yeah.
is done.
Yeah, fucking absolutely whack.
I mean,
God
if Boris Johnson is going to go by any of his previous precedents that he'd set over the last 3 years or I guess even close to almost 3 years worth of just fucking pathetic behavior as prime minister, almost certainly he'll call a general election to try and save his own skin. He's fought for so long, and he's fought for so long, and he has backstabbed so many people. He's destroyed the faith in the party and in his own leadership for to try and get to be prime minister, giving up after 2.5 years, 3 years. At this point, I can't see it happening at all.
Thankfully, this one was satire, but it still took me a second. Labour MP Rosie Duffield's been spotted outside number 10. It's thought she's pledged to support Boris Johnson and asked to take over as health secretary in order to sort out the trans issue.
If only I would not be
Yeah.
surprised.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest with you, the fact that the two major parties are so closely linked together, many of them could just switch sides and it wouldn't make much difference to them.
Well, yeah, there was talks about like 5 Red Wall MPs trying to defect from the Tories to Labour Party. Hopefully, they'll learn from the Christian Wakefield experience that people don't like that shit. That it makes them look like they're just red neoliberalism versus blue neoliberalism.
Which, to be fair, is basically what it is for the most part.
I mean, not even like it's weird how what's happened under Boris Johnson and the Tories is that they've become less economically neoliberal. They've been happy to just throw like government cash at people, whether to try and gain favour with the public or to just essentially prop up whatever business they think they want to prop up because their mates run it, and that they kind of this like economic responsible economic policy that they've been known for, just kind of gone out the window to try and save Boris Johnson's skin. Whereas what they're actually doing under neoliberal ideology, you never want to impose upon private entities ever. You can't do that. That's just like complete fucking anathema to neoliberal policymaking. But now we've got all these cultural policies to try and create a narrative that are being spun, like forcing public buildings to have it separate gender toilets rather than having only solely gender neutral toilets. Talking about investigating the medical records of transitioning children, which is basically revoking their right to medical confidentiality, all of these different things, like the education bill forcing universities to act in certain ways and platform certain people, right? That's stuff that is not something that neoliberals would generally do. Neoliberals that don't want to use the power of the state to enforce their whims upon private entities. But as obviously neoliberalism is collapsing and we're moving towards the barbarism stage, right? They're abandoning that economic principle and trying to enforce cultural norms, which is, I'm not gonna say what kind of government that is, but I'm sure people in the chat are probably getting what I'm driving at.
Yeah, it's genuinely interesting, that one, isn't it? They're going to try and essentially outlaw in new public buildings unisex toilet, or genderless toilets.
It's,
On the basis
specifically,
that
yeah.
on the basis that, well, you can't trust the transes, can you? Oh God, no! It's terrible, awful stuff. Sexual assaults. The turf talking points. And yet, this is from the government that are literally just like full of sex pests.
I know, right? It's pretty hypocritical. I mean, the thing is, the law is specifically saying it's being touted on Twitter as them banning gender-neutral toilets. That's not actually happening. What they are doing is mandating that there has to be the provision of single-sex facilities. Now, that's technically different in that if you want to have 3 separate toilets, like single sex of each ones, and then a gender-neutral toilet on top of that, people can do. Obviously, they won't do. They'll try and save money and just do 2 separate toilets or whatever. But also, just from like a practical perspective, it makes no sense. Like, you can just have single cubicle toilets that anybody can use, which have a door that goes all the way that locks and goes all the way from the bottom to the top and has its own sink in the cubicle, right? You can do that.
Yeah.
They have that at my university. They have that in like small cafes and pubs and bars or whatever. They'll just have a row of loos and people can just use them whenever they want, regardless. They just put a sanitary bin in each of them, and then everybody can use it regardless if they're plumbing or whatever. Like, that's a fine, but now you can't do that. You have to. Well, I went to Greece and they had toilets labeled men and women next to each other, individual cubicles. One had a sanitary bin and one didn't. And I was like, what's the fucking point? There's no utility to this at all, other than just to like virtue signal to transphobes.
Oh, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's just
Just
culture war. They've got the culture war is so obviously meant to paper over the cracks that conservatism and neoliberalism, and indeed fascism, have, that they don't have public policy that's for the good of people. So they distract people with fucking nonsense. And never more is that the case, never more obviously is that the case than when you have a government in such dire straits as this. They're just throwing out any old shit. Just anything you can possibly think of to desperately try and distract people. Like, they were literally like the thing during the vote of no confidence thing, when he was saying it would be bad to overrule this now because of Ukraine.
I know, right? Fucking
What's
hell.
like the Ukrainians are going to go, oh shit, Boris Johnson's just had to resign as prime minister. Well, pack it up, lads. Just wave the Russian tanks into Kiev. What the fuck are you talking about? It makes no difference to anything.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Oh,
Well, it's
God
the same thing.
almighty.
It's the same thing with Joe Biden saying the gas prices are really high because of the Russian war. We can't do anything about the gas prices because of the war in Ukraine. I'm like, it's nothing to do with the gas prices. I understand that people think that there's the Joe Biden lower gas prices button that he can push. Obviously, it doesn't exist, but him palming that off upon the Russia-Ukraine war rather than on, I don't know, OPEC. Like, it's just how they think they can just pull the politicians feel like nowadays in like this post-truth era that we live in, they can just pull the wool over people's eyes with nonsense.
A strong legacy in a huge range of areas.
Unfortunately, they're basically, that is true though. They can pull the wool over people's eyes. That's the really
100%,
disgusting aspect of this. It's not that they try it so much, although that is insulting to the intelligence. It's that they don't just get away with it, but like Boris Johnson has been doing this for years, and the British public gave him a majority. Now, admittedly, it's a majority under a very, very flawed system, but nonetheless, he got tens of millions of votes, and people gave him a fucking whacking majority, which basically has made him King Emperor for the last couple of years, and that's awful. He got that on the back of lies, on get Brexit done, oven ready deal. That's it. And of course, he's ripped up that oven ready fucking deal this week by trying to get rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol as well, or amend the Northern Ireland Protocol.
and it's not even like that it was just a thing that they had in the deal that then didn't work in the end of it. He explicitly lied to the public. He told Ian Paisley Jr. and the DUP that they literally only had the protocol in the Brexit deal to be able to win the election off the back of being able to tell the public that the deal was oven ready, when actually they always had the plan to scrap the protocol. It was never going to be a long-term solution and was just there to lie to the public to win the election. It explicitly lied. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, the DUP wouldn't have ever supported this. But actually, the people in Westminster need to stop getting power sort of blinkers on, because every time they do, it fucks them up. Okay, the Tories are the scorpion on the back always. Look at what it did to the Lib Dems. Look at what it did to the DUP. Don't get into bed with the Tories, because you will come off worse from this. They'll do the evil, fucked up shit. They'll put the blame on you, and you'll get fucked over. And it happened. So just stop fucking getting into bed with them. They're fucking horrible. They're gonna fuck you over every single fucking time.
Yeah,
Look what they're doing to their own prime minister right now. Like, they'll do it to anyone.
We were listening to Lord Heseltine on LBC, and he was saying that the reason why the Tories are the most successful electoral force in history is because they know how to be able to get into power. And he didn't say it, but we all knew what he meant, in that they understand that they are ruthless, completely ruthless, and they do not care about any kind of area effect that they have when they release their fucking atom bomb upon politics.
Well, exactly, and Heseltine should fucking know, because it was him that launched that challenge against Major back in 94, 95, whenever it was.
94, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's although again, the person that wields the sword rarely wears the crown, because that was the end of him basically. Although he's still in the Lords, isn't he?
Yeah. So by end, you mean he got a really cushy position in the House of Lords?
Yeah, no, he's earned millions and millions of pounds at our expense. But I mean, like the end of him as a potential,
political
prime
figure,
minister.
Yeah, 100%.
Although I was fucking watching something. Tebbett's still going. How the fuck is Tebbett was 90 when he was in the 70s. He was a crypt keeper. How the fuck is he still there in the House of Lords?
Like a feral ghoul in the basement.
Yeah.
In the basement of fucking, what's the place in New Vegas called? Repcon Tessai. That's the one.
I don't know. I don't play games.
Reasonable, fair enough. People in chat.
I play FIFA and NBA. That's about it.
I do love a good game of FIFA.
Oh, good. Well, we'll have to. Actually, no, I don't really play with other people. That sounds weird. Anyway, Boris Johnson has just concluded a meeting with his core team in which he has decided to replace Sunak and Javid possibly tonight in an attempt to ride out the stuff. He only knows one thing, doesn't he?
Who will agree? Who will agree to be in his cabinet? It's the end of their career if they do it at this point. If they say yes to being a cabinet minister, they just literally any chance of a further career after this is gone. Next election gone. Like, why would they do it? They're gonna have to say no. They have to That's why he has to call an election. He has to make sure that anybody who does become a cabinet minister, he can't appoint a cabinet without winning an election again.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I think Nadine Dorries is just going to be the MP, so the Secretary of State for everything. It's just going to be her.
Yeah, that might be the case. Because obviously they can just make and get rid of Secretary of State positions basically at will. It's really strange how you just make up Secretaries of State, like the Secretary for Levelling Up, the Secretary of State for Brexit, Secretary of State for sick beats or whatever. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be dope. Yeah, let's do that.
That would definitely be a Secretary of State that I would happily be created. But they can just.
Well, no, but we know Nadine can already do that, because did you see her rap video?
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I did see her rap.
She's got flow. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Indeed. She got bars, right?
Indeed, sick bars.
Yeah, true.
Oh god, and then did you see Andrew Neil's joke response thing that he did? He did a rap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's as good as it sounds.
Yeah, quite. Andrew Neil is such a strange individual. Again,
he is. Yeah, just
another person who just wants to be famous. I feel like he's just somebody who doesn't care at this point and will just say whatever he'll go. Oh, that's fine. I'll do a bit of culture war for money. I'll do a bit of Tory bashing for money. I'll do all this and that. When he's just.
Well, actually, isn't that basically what the entirety of GB News is? Because I used to. What's the Scottish guy's name? He did Coast. Neil. Fuck.
Oliver.
Neil Oliver. There we go. Yeah, Neil Oliver, Scottish guy. I'll be honest with you, a little bit of a hottie back in the day before he became like whatever he is now. He could have got it.
Fucking
I'm just saying.
swamp human.
Yeah. And he did a show called Coast, and it was awesome. He'd travel around the coast of Britain and tell you all about these different places, and he was really enthusiastic. He was like Brian Cox, but for Earth, sort of thing, you know? And Scottish. And now it's just gone like full, like far right. I'm on Brexit, fucking, not Brexit TV. It might as well be.
It might
On
as well be, yeah.
GB News, basically just
like
doing.
Simon McCoy as well. Like so many people I had
Yeah.
actual respect for previously.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't. I suppose it's money, isn't it? I
Gloria
suppose.
De Piero as well. Like, fucking hell, this is such an absolute mess.
Gloria De Piero. Hang on, what the former? Hang on, the former Labour
yeah,
Equalities Minister or whatever
yeah,
she was.
yeah. She's on GB News now.
I wish. Oh, that's a fucking shame. I'll be honest with you. I don't watch it that much because it's shit. Like, if I want to watch nonsense, there's plenty of YouTube. I can get that.
I'll react Andy to GB News. It's good fun. Like
Yeah,
Darren Grimes is especially fun to watch.
Hey, old crafty wank, lovely stuff.
Look, what you do? I don't know if you've heard about this about Darren Grimes. Obviously, way off topic, but I think it's a funny factoid that he on his website for his little YouTube channel called Reasoned, cancel this, which is the tagline for it. It's incredibly fucking cringe. Like he calls himself like a grassroots activist, but it turns out that he is funded by a shell company set up by the son of an old Brexit Party MEP who owns a fucking massive chain of fish shops in London. And there's just this shell company called Media and Activism that shells out money for him, and he calls himself grassroots, and they beg for donations. Well, fucking slimy piece of shit.
Well, that's all. It's all astroturf shit. Like it's the same basically in Britain and America. You've got the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's thing. He doesn't have the money for that. It's all like a dark money, fucking billionaires. Yeah, exactly. Fucking astroturfing. That's all. That's all of this. What this is. It's a fucking Murdoch trying to get this Talk TV shit off the ground. It's just rich bastards trying to do more and more right. As if, and this is what really annoys me. All of the money that gets poured into it, the fucking billions that gets poured into right-wing shit on like Facebook and Twitter and all these different news channels, and all of the major fucking newspapers are owned by these right-wing wankers. And they'll talk about the left-wing media establishment.
I know, right?
What are you talking about? Honest to God, it's ridiculous.
Like GB News Funder, like the guy who runs the hedge fund that part funds GB News. It's part funded by the Lagarde Institute, part run by a hedge fund of one of the main kind of progenitors of GB News. And this is a guy who last year dropped $40 million on investments in private healthcare, and then suddenly GB News starts broadcasting a bunch of segments about how the NHS is failing. I wonder why that might be. That's a strange little coincidence, isn't it?
That's a shock. I'll be honest with you. That's a shock. That does not seem like the kind of journalistic endeavour that I would expect from GB News.
I know,
you know what? I'm going to say you're lying on this one. Definitely, 100%.
100%. Now you rumbled me. It's just like, have you not seen like the hashtag on Twitter, which is #ScumMedia?
Yes, I have seen that. I haven't clicked on it, but I've seen it. So.
And it is literally like Boris Johnson sycophants who think that the only reason why the Boris Johnson is being hammered by the media is because they just have they're all controlled by the left and they're all biased against him, rather than the fact that there is now an opposition who is completely in the pocket of business as well, in the point of Keir Starmer. So there's no like left-wing opposition anymore. So they can happily just get rid of the guy who's driving the country into the ground, so they can have the sensible adults in charge again. Like there was a reason why the media were in the pocket of Boris Johnson 3 years ago, and they're now against him in 2022. There's a reason for that, and they're just fucking too like blind as shit to see it.
Right. Oh, by the way, the person I'm talking to, chat, because I didn't really introduce you. It's No Justice MTG. I'll pop the link in the chat there. Everyone go and check them out here on Twitch and Twitter and all that stuff.
Likewise to everyone in my chat. This is Kevin Logan we're speaking to. I'll also pop the link in my chat. Although they were in my chat earlier on this afternoon. So.
I was, yeah.
Or this evening, even. It's fucking late, but it's bright and late. There's still sunshine.
It is. Look, I started my. I was planning on starting at 7, but it was too light because I've got the light and stuff, and so I'm trying to make myself not look like a fucking tomato. But it's still light out. So I started an hour later, and it's still fucking light. We're past the summer solstice, people. Come on now.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Oh God. So he's going to try and replace them tonight. I wonder who he's got lined up. Because
Steve Barclay is health secretary.
really, oh God.
Yeah.
Okay. Nadeem
That's-
Zahawi is going into number 10.
That's surprising that Nadeem Zahawi isn't resigning. You'd think he'd be
Well,
someone who'd
it's
want to run for leader.
well, it says he's one of the few members not to have expressed any support for the prime minister thus far.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So maybe he's
is he
trying
hedging his
to-
bets?
Yeah, he might be going in with some kind of like ultimatum of like additional cash or money or fame or dick sucking that he can get off of Boris Johnson to try and back him overall.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Does Steve Barclay have any connection to Barclays Stadium? No, I don't think they do.
I
No,
mean,
Grimper.
Barclay brothers more likely.
Probably. Yeah. Oh fuck. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of days, because it could be that he just wants to try and knuckle down and see it through, because that's the thing that's worked for him in the past. But
That's
I don't
why
know. It's
well,
this seems like too much for him to do now.
yeah, with the 1922 committee meeting next week, and assuming they're going to like Andrew Mitchell said they're going to change the rules to get rid of him.
Yeah.
They literally said he said he's been on camera saying they're just going to change the rules. So that's why I think he's going to call the general election this week. That's why because he's got no choice. If he wants to stay in power, he has to call the general election right now.
But yeah, basically, yeah. But I mean, the problem is he's fucked. He's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. That's why it's untenable, because if he calls the general election, he loses.
Oh, almost certainly, but that'd be fucking hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
he's either not prime minister because they remove him, or he runs the chance that maybe he can somehow stay on by a miracle general election. Because if there's no general election and the 1922 committee meet, he is gone. He's gone. It's over. Finito. No chance, right? They obviously want to get rid of him, and they've said that they'll change rules to get rid of him. Whereas if he calls the election, then that's down to the public, and then it's their vote of confidence of the electorate, which could go either way. We've seen elections swing wildly. Remember 2017, right? Like, nothing's impossible for him as far as he's concerned. And if he wants to change public opinion, then he can do that. And if he wants to reselect a bunch of Tory MPs, just fucking go fucking scorched earth in the party membership, and they actually the people running to be MPs, he can do that. Like,
He can, but the thing is, I think he's so hole below the waterline now that I don't know that he can turn around public opinion on this. And
I don't
okay,
think so either. But as far as he's concerned, like, there's like a 5% chance versus 0% chance, right?
yeah, well, exactly, yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, he might as well play the card that has the potential to win rather than sticking around and just guaranteeing loss.
Yeah.
But yeah, realistically, like, it's going to be difficult for the Labour Party to get an outright majority, but I cannot see the Tory Party holding on to its majority. So I would expect a hung Parliament probably. But then again, if he does go scorched earth and give up the incumbency of a load of Tory MPs, he could end up handing Labour a majority with his
You'd have to think
stupidity.
so. If he just randomly calls a random snap election, and we know what happens to MPs, to PMs who hold snap elections, right? They get fucking monstered for, like, especially after Theresa May, when she said that she's not going to call a snap election, and then she did, right? And then suddenly the whole tide even turned from fucking 20 points up to, a hung parliament, right? They could go even worse for Boris Johnson after that, in the middle of a bunch of essentially a crisis that he's in at the moment. You'd think that there would be a position with which that he could maneuver his way into doing it.
True. Although I suspect that when we went into the last general election, it was a lot more doom and gloom for a number of reasons, including that in a hung parliament situation, the Lib Dems had already ruled out of forming a coalition with Jeremy Corbyn, because Jeremy Corbyn isn't trash. Whereas Sir Keith is, and so it's very strong possibility. I think the Lib Dems would happily get in bed with.
They've already said, right? They've literally laid out. They've already said publicly that they will support Keir Starmer in a coalition government if on the proviso that they do electoral reform without a referendum.
Ooh. So once bitten, twice shy, because that was the one thing they were going to get out of the Tories, and was it 2/3 voted against it or something? So now they want, no, we don't want a referendum, just do the fucking reforms.
I mean,
We want something out of this.
I was saying previously on my streams, I think it's in Labour's benefit to get the reform through. The amount of seats
Yeah,
that they lose due to vote splitting. If we had a preferential voting like they do in Australia, Labour would like there
yeah,
would be a bunch of Tory safe seats that would become Labour safe seats overnight.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm more than happy with having some sort of at least vaguely proportional representation. Yeah, I think that probably would be much better. Or like, was it the transferable vote or whatever? I don't fucking know.
The point is, if you do
Whatever.
things like
There's a
if you
million
do things like
systems.
if you do things like STV and mixed member or something like that, and you have to rejig the constituencies and you have to go through a whole fucking commission to do it. But if you just change it from first past the post to ranked choice, you keep all of the constituencies as they are the same currently. So the electoral commission doesn't just create new constituency maps for the transferable votes that is more favourable to the Conservatives or whatever, or the mixed members or whatever. Whilst the Tories are in,
Yeah.
well, I guess with Labour in power, they'd have the kind of the rule of the roost there. But regardless, if you just change the current constituency map keep it as is, and change it to preferential voting, then you just lock out the Tories for a generation.
Well, exactly, and that would you could actually start to make some sort of genuine progressive change that might hold firm. If you could just keep the Tories out for 10, 15 years, you could do something. Now, I don't expect fucking Keir Starmer to do the things you need him to do, like fucking renationalise the railways or actually renationalise the NHS or whatever.
I actually think that Keir Starmer might not campaign on renationalising the railways and might just do it anyway, because it just the one thing that makes a load of sense and you can just basically do by snapping your fingers, because you just allow all of the franchise contracts to run out and then don't renew them, which is an easy way of doing, because that's what we did during the pandemic, right? We
Yeah,
renationalised them because they couldn't function as a private entity anymore. But I think that's one thing that he might actually do, but it's not good enough, right? That's why I don't want proportional representation like STV or L mixed member, because then it's impossible. It's really difficult to get a majority in Parliament and to
yeah,
be able to push through the radical change that we do need, which is renationalising huge sectors of the economy, which you can do if you have a majority, which you'd get out of either first past the post or ranked choice. Obviously, with first past the post, people lose their votes, but under preferential ranked choice voting, everyone's votes always gets counted, because
mm,
your preferences always count at least something between the two candidates in your constituency, right?
sure.
So that way that you keep the local representation, you keep the ability to get large majorities to be able to make the sweeping change that we do need, and also every people's votes count a lot more than they did through first past the post. I think that single transferable vote and like mixed member proportionality is better. It's a better system to create more representative government, but so much damage has been done through consecutive neoliberal majorities for 40 years or whatever, that it's not good enough to just make the election system fair. We have to make sure that it's rigged to get the change through that we need, but otherwise we can't continue. Like literally, we cannot continue with this amount of privatization. It has to get turned around. Otherwise, the country's
Yeah.
fucked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Or I've also had the thought as well, what you could do with, and I mean, if they're going to take on fundamental reform of the voting system for the Commons, they're probably not going to take on that for the Lords. But what you could do with the Lords as well is do a straight proportional representation based on the vote overall in the country.
Yes.
Which would give the Lords some legitimacy and some backbone with which to actually do their proper job, rather than largely waving things through and falling asleep in the chamber, which is what they now currently do. And secondly, you could still have like the list of Lords from top to bottom for each party, so that you would still have the continuity of having the same people, which is the whole point of why they argue that it's continuity, and you could still keep that whilst having every vote in the country actually mean something. And you could do that even within the confines of first past the post as well, because you wouldn't necessarily be electing a lord as such, but whoever you voted for, that would be counted towards the overall vote, obviously, and the percentage they would get in the Lords, which I think is much better than them just stacking it full of wankers. Like, there are way more Lords than there could possibly fit in that fucking room. It's ridiculous.
And they're all just there because they have their fucking brown envelopes, right?
Yeah.
Like Cash for Honours was a massive scandal that then just everybody forgot about and never went away. Like
Yeah,
it's always
exactly.
just been an old boys club, and I mean, obviously I understand the continuity arc. It just needs to fucking go. It's. I mean, to be fair, there's a very long period in which, for some reason, like the hereditary lords were more trustworthy than the elected commons, right? Which was crazy to me. But as an institution, it is fundamentally undemocratic. So I think we should have a senate. We should have a senate based upon just based on proportional representation, like simple.
No, just elect me king. It's all good.
I mean, that's true. I mean, you've got the profile picture ready, so.
Bro. So this is Boris Johnson's letter back. Dear Sag. Not even first name. First syllable terms. Dear Sag.
He writes like a 5-year-old.
He does, yeah. Well, he basically did all of his development till the age of 5 and then stopped. Yeah. Thank you for your letter tendering your resignation. I was very sorry to receive it. You have served this government, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? You will be greatly missed, and I look forward to your contribution from the backbenches. Yours, Squiggle. Ridiculous. Yeah. Dear Sag.
You're Sag.
A fourth junior minister, Nicola Richards, resigns. Don't know who that is.
PPS Transport.
Yeah, that's okay. It's so stupid that we have, because it's obviously meant to just pack the fucking backbenches with loyalists. But the fact that you have the personal private secretaries to these MPs are members of parliament, because they'll actually turn up at like international conferences for like transport, for instance, and all of the other people will be members of parliament who have like a secretary with them, like a hired secretary, just a person who like takes notes and shit. And the other, our one will turn up and have MPs doing that for them. Like, they're a member of parliament. They've got better shit they can be doing than taking notes and getting coffee for you. Yeah. What the fuck?
It's really strange, isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Again, I guess all of this is just fucking dick sucking all the way down, isn't it? People desperately appealing to the higher ups to be able to get a promotion.
Yeah. It wakes up. Yeah, well, it's just a fucking den of careerist snakes.
Yeah, 100%.
That's entirely what it is. You could tell that with Sir Keith. His entire fucking thing was, I'm the uber socialist. Vote for me. I support Jeremy Corbyn to the end. And as soon as he gets in, everyone's gone, including Corbyn.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Turn up on dime. Labour are now the party of business. Literally, words that came out of his mouth, right? And that's why Corbyn had to be monstered by the PLP, because they knew that if they after their Commons job had ended and they were looking for a lobbying job or a position at some kind of private equity firm, if they had their masts tied to the Corbyn era, right? Imagine if he won, if he became prime minister, and then they literally see their future prospects of their career just gone in an instant after they've been seen to be in support of the socialist man, right? The socialist jam man. They can't do. That's why he had to go. There's such an old boys club of people, of careerists, that he was damaging to their potential career prospects, and that's why the internal mess happened in the way that it did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was disappointed with a number of, not just even the backbenchers, people who had previously been like friends with him and stuff, or allies or whatever, who were happy to turn on him when it came to the crunch. Not enough people stood up for him, which is a real shame, because that was a chance to actually build something genuinely impressive and worthwhile. And now we've got this fucking husk of a human being in his place, and I just can't help but feel the fucking the grim injustice of it all, you know.
Well, it's because it's the problem is that they've managed to con all of like the centrist liberal types. The reason why Corbyn had to go is because A, he's anti-Semitic, and B, because he's just not a real politician, right? It's all just like whimsical dream policies for entitled young people, and now the adults are in charge, rather than what it really is just a cynical attempt to make sure that their future career prospects remain intact. And all of the centrist dopes in the party, in the supporter base, or fucking lap that shit up. They call Corbyn Magic Grandpa. Oh, Magic Grandpa's gone now. The adults are in charge. All these fucking cunts on Twitter.
Well, this is the thing. Anyone else in charge would be 20 points ahead. And even after all of this shit, Starmer's not 10 points ahead.
So
It's
it's
ridiculous.
long Corbyn. That's the problem, right? Everything has to be blamed on the
Long
jam man.
Corbyn.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as ridiculous, but the Tories still blaming the Labour government from 15 fucking years ago.
The crazy thing is, right? I've talked about this a lot on my channel. It very much frustrates me in the what we get when people look back at the Labour years. We always talk about, oh well, the economy crashed because of the global financial crisis, and it happened during Labour, so that's Labour's fault, and that's just completely not true. Like Gordon Brown probably saved the economy with the way that he handled the global financial crisis, right? And it's not like they caused it with anything. It was Thatcherite deregulation that caused the crisis in the first place, right? So there's this big discourse about how Labour bankrupted the country, and I'm like, hang on a minute, that's nothing to do with Labour. Yet that's what they get. That's what gets tied to them the whole time. But the things that were their fault, that have huge amounts of ramifications nowadays, things like PFIs, things like them not building any like council housing. Do you know in 1975 we built 150,000 council homes. In 2004 we built 135. So,
Fucking
like, the
ridiculous.
housing crisis is literally down to the failure of the Blair administration to change basically anything. And we've had,
Yeah.
like, the inbred kind of money printing used to basically fuel the bank balances of the super rich that are in the pockets of the leadership of the party as they turn their party fundraisers into these huge kind of events they do to court big business to their whims, right? So all of these things are the fault of the Blair government, that we should really be talking. Everyone should talk about the failures of New Labour, but Conservatives can't make those criticisms because that's Conservative policy already. So they have to
Yeah.
make up this lie about the global financial crisis that isn't true, and everyone just lapped it up. It's infuriating.
But I can't wait for our new 14 hospitals that we were definitely promised and are definitely going to happen.
Yeah, quite, yeah.
There's been another resignation. This time that's not a real name. How do you pronounce that? YNYS.
Innismon?
Ennismon, MP, Virginia Crosby, has resigned as Parliamentary Private Secretary to the Welsh office.
I'm surprised there are any Welsh Tory MPs left. There's no one left in the Senate.
Very few, yeah.
Yeah.
The situation is even more distressing when I consider what you have achieved with Brexit. Oh, suck my dick. Just absolutely fuck off. But yeah, that's another one gone. I presume that I'm hearing noises that there are going to be several more PPSs resign. I mean, who's going to get the coffee for the ministers that don't exist? It's almost a metaphysical question.
I'm wondering whether Grant Shapps is going to resign. That'd be the interesting one.
I think he'll try and resign and fail somehow. He'll fuck that
that'd be
up.
very Grant Shapps, wouldn't he? But
That would be the most Grant Shapps thing ever.
Considering like how under the cosh he's been with like all of the strike action and stuff like that, you think the perfect opportunity for him to resign with no kind of his conscience clear would be to do it under the auspices of doing it to try and oust Boris Johnson and try and undermine his leadership, right? That might get all of the centrists on side after them kind of sort of backing Mick Lynch over the strike dispute.
I mean, sort of, I guess, but I mean, with Shapps, and it's similar to Nadine Dorries. They know the next person that comes in is not going to have them as a government minister, so they've got no choice but to stick with Johnson. Because resigning now, like, these motherfuckers are rats deserting the ship because they think they can get a position in the next government, or maybe even become leader themselves. Whereas those two have got no chance of getting anything after this. They're done as government ministers. Even as influential backbenchers, they're done. They're over. It's game over for them. So they've got no choice but to throw their hand completely in with Boris Johnson. I mean, to be honest with you, it's such a disgrace that Boris Johnson ever appointed Nadine Dorries at all. She is one of the most unbelievably unfit people to hold any kind of government responsibility. She is fucking ridiculous. Yeah, Liz Truss as well, actually. Yeah. I mean, there are several of them that are, but they're like, when you're like an anti-abortion crazy, I mean, that's actually, in America, that's something of a selling point. But in Britain, that's relatively rare. That should disqualify you, I think, actually. You're too far gone at that point.
And she's just so completely ignorant of anything. Like, anything in life. Doesn't matter whether it's anything to do with government or like, she thinks tennis is played on a fucking pitch. They made her culture secretary. Fucking hell.
Yeah, exactly. Although, did you see her at the Formula One at the weekend? And Yeah. Well, the British Grand Prix was at the weekend, and obviously
Yeah.
as culture and media and sport, she's that was one of her remits and all the rest of it. So that's fine. She went down there and she was on they do a walk. Look, they allow the big wigs people to walk amongst the cars before they get going, which is
Oh, yeah.
slightly odd. And they have like people interviewing various. It's like a celebrity, like you have a rock star here and a politician there, and blah blah blah.
I hope
And
Martin Brundle asked her about Channel
Mart-
4.
yeah, well, Martin Brundle walked straight past her.
Love
He was
it.
looking for people to interview. He was saying, "Let's look for some interesting people," and walked straight past her.
Brilliant.
And
Love
the
it.
look on her face, oh god, it's so embarrassing. But I loved it, yeah, fucking beautiful. But he should have done. He should have turned around and gone, "Why are you trying to fuck over Channel 4? You don't even understand how it's funded, you stupid fuck."
Yeah.
Again, a person who's so unfit for the office doesn't understand the first thing, but they said mean things about her, so she's going to try and privatise them.
Yeah, 100%. Like during the Azim Rafiq scandal, having her as like sports and culture secretary is like literally the
no.
worst possible person we could have had in place at that point in time.
True. Well, not that this is relevant to anything we've been discussing, but the test match was pretty good.
Oh my god, it was fucking incredible. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Johnny Bairstow, what a legend.
Yeah, Johnny Bairstow can get it. Joe Root can get it.
Very
Actually, all
true.
of them. Any of them. Fuck it. The opening partnership did something for once. Amazing.
I'm still not sold on Zach Crawley. Just give me
No,
more
they're
points back.
wank, but they did something right for once, and I'm happy with that. That's fine. They
It's easy
chased
when
down a
it's
ridiculous total so easily.
But I guess it's easy when you're on a flat pitch and you're against Indian seamers like
No, I
Mohammad
mean,
Siraj and Shardul Thakur, who literally can't bowl to save their life. Like,
well, no, Taka's ordinary as fuck, but I mean, still 378.
it's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, they couldn't scrape that together at all in the Ashes. They had no fucking. Like, you were wondering, like, can they get to three figures? Like, can they get to three figures? That might work. That gives the bowlers something to go at. Whereas this time around, they've chased four games in a row. They've chased ridiculous totals.
Yeah, almost 300, over 300 once, almost 300 three times. It's incredible.
Yeah.
The way in which they've kind of changed like the face of Test match batting has been really interesting. I think people gave the England team a really hard time in Australia. Like, obviously they kind of collapsed far too many times. That's not what you should expect from like Test level batsmen. But I genuinely watching that, like,
over,
all of
they
the
would be
entirety of the Australian bowling attack were unplayable, and they never faltered. It was the best bowling I'd ever seen in my life. It was incredible.
True. Well, I mean, they were good. I don't know if I would put it down as the best, but they were shit though. Like it's not. It's one thing getting out to good bowling. That's fine. But when you consistently you keep making the same mistakes over and over again,
That's true. And
that
you know
it
when
was
you're coming up
really
against, right?
poor. Yeah, it was really poor. But anyway, it doesn't really matter now.
Okay,
But anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
water under the bridge, yeah.
that was good. I enjoyed that. And Cameron Norrie got through to the semi-final at Wimbledon.
Absolutely.
Pretty
Did you watch the Tsitsipas Kyrgios match?
I did not know. Did he spit at anyone this time?
No, but Tsitsipas got so angry he started hitting balls into the crowd and hit a member of the audience.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
He literally got tilted so hard by Kyrgios being a fucking expletive that he got so frustrated by him he started hitting balls everywhere. It was good entertainment. Like,
Well, that's that. Yeah, that doesn't seem like health and safety is a. It doesn't seem like a good thing to do.
No,
Smashing
100%.
balls into the crowd.
Yeah, he smashed the ball into the scoreboard as well.
Well,
Should've
that's less
broken-
dangerous, but yeah.
Could have broken the fucking scoreboard. Imagine if they had to on court one having the scoreboard not functioning for the rest of the tournament because of this guy getting tilted, hitting balls into it. Would funny.
True. Okay, what's this? I don't know. That is shit. Okay. Any final thoughts then? Because it seems like things have calmed down a little bit in terms of breaking news.
Yeah, 100%. And I need to go and get some dinner because it's now 9:20 and I am hungry.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. I mean, how do you see this playing out then? If I was to ask you for a prediction, And I know it's ridiculous to predict even what's going to happen in the next 2 hours, let alone the next 2 weeks. But
I mean, either general election or leadership election. Those are your two options. And general election will be a fucking massacre. And if it's a leadership election, I think it's going to be between Jeremy Hunt, Penny Mordaunt, maybe, and then some like ultra ERG, but maybe Steve Baker.
would you see it possible that Boris Johnson could run in the leadership election as well?
No, I'm assuming the 1922 committee will explicitly change the rules so they can get rid of him, and then also that he can't run.
Well, okay, maybe. I don't even know if that's legal, is it? I don't know. Who knows? It's
Yeah,
the
the
macabre
1922
world
committee.
of Tory infighting.
Yeah, the 1922 committee only bound by their own rules as they've made it up, right? So
Basically, I suppose. Yeah. An organisation so arcane they're literally named after a year from 100 years ago.
PMQs tomorrow. Looking forward to that. It's gonna be good content, as Default Boy in chat's talking about. Definitely going to be covering PMQs tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
going to be absolute banter.
Well, if I'm awake, which I probably won't be, but if I'm awake, I
Yeah,
might.
you stream really fucking late.
I do, yeah, and then I'm awake all night. I've full degenerate hours over at Shay Kev. Yeah, if I'm awake, I might pop on and see what's around, but maybe not. I don't know. Okay, everyone go and follow No Justice MTG, who is
Likewise,
based as
everyone
fuck.
go follow Kevin Logan as well. So KF Logan 1875. You'll
That
go
is
follow
the
him
one.
as well. Everyone in my chat too. To be honest, most of
Okay,
mine is just loner box stragglers, to be honest, but they probably already follow you. But
fair enough. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. I'll see you
really good
later.
to catch up. As always, we always have good content together. So
Correct. All right. Take care.
catch you in a bit. See you later. Bye.
Bye bye.